Part 34. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 331. Rong Yu held the teacup in his hand and glanced casually at Fukang, who was standing beside Chu Qinghuang, and said calmly, "If you plan to repay it, you should borrow the money from your eldest brother." When Chu Qinghuang heard this, he immediately understood what he meant. The emperor's brother is now the master of Dongling. Naturally, the emperor has to make the final decision on the affairs of the country. Otherwise, the ministers of the Western Qi dynasty will think that Chu Qinghuang borrowed money from his father and it doesn't matter if he doesn't pay it back. Besides, Her Majesty the Queen and the regent who abdicated in Dongling are very fond of this newly recognized daughter. What's wrong with borrowing a little money? If you have it, pay it back. Even if you don't have it, what father can still be serious with his daughter? If they are allowed to have such a perception, then borrowing money will become meaningless. Chu Qinghuang nodded, "I understand. I will discuss this matter with the second emperor brother first, and inform the first emperor brother after he returns. When the situation in Ziki dynasty stabilizes, I will go to Dongling in person." "Take Fukang with you when you go to Dongling," Rong Yu said calmly. "He will also share half of the borrowing money." As soon as these words came out, Chu Qinghuang and Fukang were stunned at the same time. Fukang shares half of it? Borrow 10 million taels of silver and Fukang pay 5 million taels. Although Chu Qinghuang was quite indulgent towards Fukang and liked him very much, he told the truth. "Even if I cut Fukang's flesh and sell it, I wouldn't be able to sell it for 5 million taels of silver." Fukang didn't say anything, but he nodded in his heart. He was indeed not worth much. But Rong Yu didn't care whether he was worth anything or not. He just said, "When will he return the 5 million taels of silver? He will consider your marriage again." Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment. "Well, my father suddenly gave Fukang another problem." "Fukang, do you hear that?" Chu Qinghuang turned to look at a certain shadow guard. 5 million taels is your betrothal gift. You have to earn enough money with your own skills before you are qualified to marry. Oh no, just you are qualified to marry me." Fukang looked at her silently, and several ways to make money flashed through his mind, but none of them seemed to work. "I must work hard to find ways to make money. Selling oneself is definitely not an option. Being a killer is a good way to make money quickly." Although he has not gone out to take over the business, he still knows the general market situation. "The most expensive head belongs to the master in front of me. His employer has been from the royal family of northern Xinjiang for 10 years, but so far no one has dared to take it. The second one is Emperor Dongling. It is said that the asking price has reached 10 million taels of silver, but there is also no one. People dare to pick it up. Someone took it over 10 years ago, but since the top and most famous killers in the world have been killed one by one, no one has dared to be tempted by this 10 million taels for many years. If Fukang takes over this business, 10 million taels will be available in an instant. But he definitely can't take it. Not to mention whether he can succeed or not, just having such an idea, the master is afraid that his head will be blown off in an instant." Fukang brushed away this thought and continued to think about other ways. He didn't know how to do business, and he hadn't thought of a way to make money that was particularly suitable for him in other aspects. Fukang frowned slightly and began to feel distressed. 5 million taels is an astronomical figure to him. There is no other way to earn this money except killing people, but the most valuable person in the world cannot be moved. It would be great if someone paid for the head of the northern Xinjiang emperor. It doesn't matter if the money is less. You can always earn 5 million taels, and you are still the king of a country. Chu Qinghuang coughed lightly and brought the teacup to his lips. The smile on the corners of his lips was so obvious that Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. "What's so happy about you?" Chu Qinghuang shook his head. Buddha said, "It cannot be said." Nan 11 glared at her. "Are you playing mystery with me?" Chu Qing Huang chuckled, not trying to be mysterious, but Fukang's thoughts were really too dangerous. If his father and mother knew that he was thinking that the emperor's head was worth 10 million taels, who knows what would happen, what a reaction. Okay, you are tired after a busy day. Go back and rest early, Nan 11 said, your father and I will leave here tomorrow morning. You have to be careful about everything by yourself. Don't be careless. Main idea. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 332. Don't worry, Mother, Chu Qing Huang hummed, I will protect myself. The two stood up and left. Returning to the Dongshang pavilion, Chu Qing Huang told the palace attendants who followed him, I will stay in the palace tonight and will return to the palace tomorrow. You go back first, there is no need to wait here. The palace man resigned. Chu Qing Huang stepped into the dormitory and looked around at the layout. After tonight, I won't live here anymore. Thinking about it, I'm still a little reluctant to leave. Fukang followed behind him silently, thinking that he would leave here early tomorrow morning, and he was even more reluctant to leave. Chu Qing Huang glanced at him and said, I originally planned to punish you, but when I think about you leaving with your father tomorrow, I can't bear it. Fukang came to his senses, and instantly thought of his dereliction of duty today, and said with great shame, this subordinate has derelict in his duty and should be punished. When I have time, I will visit you. Chu Qing Huang reached out and rubbed his head, I will take you for a walk in Dongling next spring. Fukang was very obedient, I will try my best to think of ways to make money. Master, rest assured that I will pay back the money I borrowed from Dongling on time. Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows and sat down on the chair, how do you plan to make money? Fukang thought for a moment, does Master have any enemies? No. Then. Fukang thought for a while, Bei Xinjiang always seemed to provoke Dongling in the past. Does the emperor have any thoughts of annexing northern Xinjiang? Chu Qing Huang shook his head casually, probably not for the time being. Fukang fell silent. So far, the most valuable head he can think of is the emperor of northern Xinjiang. If this method doesn't work, then 5 million taels will be too difficult, unless he can turn the money in the northern Xinjiang treasury into his own. An idea flashed in Fukang's mind, and there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Can Yan Guo come up with 5 million taels? Since he is the prince of the Yan kingdom, it would be a good idea to find a way to recover his identity and then get money from the Yan kingdom's treasury. Chu Qing Huang looked at him with subtle eyes, probably not. The Yan kingdom has a very small territory and has always been attached to northern Xinjiang. It is a vassal state of northern Xinjiang. How can there be so much money in the treasury? Hearing this, Fukang couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Yangguo is indeed small. Besides, he actually didn't want to resume his status as a prince, so it was fine to maintain the status quo. Your Majesty, Minjiao led the maids in with meals, 4 servants are waiting outside. Chu Qing Huang turned around, let them come in. Yes. Qi Ling, Wenzhan, Zhong Jin, and Hong Yu walked in one by one. Under the light of the lights, they were all in high spirits and dazzling. After entering the palace, the 4 of them lifted their robes and saluted respectfully, I'd like to see Her Majesty the Queen, long live your Majesty. Chu Qing Huang said calmly, it's so late, what are you doing here? Shouldn't Qi Ling be in the military camp? Reply to your Majesty. Qi Ling replied respectfully, I have selected all the men. They are all brave and good soldiers who can stand alone. I have come to see your Majesty tonight. I want to ask for a favor before leaving. As soon as these words came out, there was a moment of silence in the hall. Status, Chu Qing Huang raised an eyebrow and looked at him, what status do you want? When new emperors ascend the throne, the first people they canonize are the old people of Kandy. Even if they are just called Zaiyi, it is still a title, right? Qi Ling's tone was particularly respectful, I am a man, so naturally I cannot be compared with women, your majesty. Look at Feng. Hong Yu said, I also want a status. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on his face, met his hopeful eyes, raised her eyebrows and said, what status do you want? I want to be the royal husband. Chu Qinghuang's tone was calm, Ziki has not yet produced a queen. I need time to think about it and think about what title should be given to the men in the harem. Fukang was silent for a long time, and then suddenly said, I have figured out how to make 5 million taels of silver. Huh? Chu Qinghuang tilted his head and raised his eyebrows with interest, what can I do? Their heads combined should be worth 5 million taels. Fukang's tone was indifferent and calm, as if he was talking about a normal thing. I will ask later to see if there is anyone outside pay for their heads, and if there are any, my subordinates will take over the business. Hong Yu frowned, Fukang, did you do this on purpose? Wen Zhan was confused, what 5 million? Qi Ling was surprised, someone wants to buy our heads. 5 million, Zhong Jin seemed to have heard some incredible joke, our heads are not worth so much dash. Who said that? Hong Yu interrupted him dissatisfied, I, the legitimate son of Prince Yu, am not worth a mere 5 million taels. Who are you looking down on? Zhong Jin was silent for a moment and then changed his words calmly, okay, the three of us are not worth so much money, but Xiao Yuer's life is very precious. His head alone can be worth 5 million taels, so there is no need for a few of us to go there make up the numbers. Hong Yu. If you guys are idle and bored, you can go out to find someone to fight. There is no need to come here to talk. Chu Qinghuang waved his hand, I am tired, please kneel down. Qi Ling sighed, I have to leave tomorrow, so I came here to say hello to your majesty. I didn't expect his majesty to be so impatient. Chu Qinghuang frowned, and her resentful tone sounded like she was a heartless person. Fukang is leaving tomorrow too, she said calmly, so can you let us stay quietly for a while? As soon as these words came out, the hall suddenly became quiet. Fukang is indeed the only favorite, and the others are all picked up. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 333. The four noisy people finally left. Chu Qinghuang looked at Fukang, and Fukang also looked at Chu Qinghuang. When their eyes met, it seemed that there were endless words in each other's eyes. However, the fact is that neither of them is a talkative person. Even on the eve of separation, it is difficult for them to be gentle and sentimental. Fukang. Chu Qinghuang said in a calm voice, prepare clothes, you will serve the bath tonight. Although they were close in the past, Minjiao and Jinlan served the bath, and Fukang would only hide in the corner to ensure the safety of the master during the bath. The only time the two of them were naked facing each other was the night when Chu Qinghuang was just reborn. She ordered him to take off his clothes forcefully, but people thought she was going to drown him. Hearing Chu Qinghuang's words at this time, Fukang was subconsciously stunned, and then nodded, yes. The bathing process in summer is very simple, there is no need for too many cumbersome clothes, and there is no need to soak in the bathtub for a long time. Fukang stood aside and gave the master a full body massage from head to toe. After the black hair was perfumed and washed clean, Chu Qinghuang got up and walked out of the bathtub, letting Fukang wipe her body. Don't look at it if it's not appropriate. Although Chu Qinghuang had promised him, Fukang's eyes and heart were all about this powerful and unparalleled master, but he didn't dare to cross the line until the real status was determined. The soft and loose robe wrapped around the slender and exquisite body, and Fukang whispered, will the subordinate carry the master back? Chu Qinghuang glanced at him and hummed lazily. So Fukang picked her up and walked towards the bedroom. It looks like I'm going to sleep with you. Fukang blushed, I don't dare. Back in the bedroom, Fu Kang dried her hair carefully. I won't be with you in the future. You must let Fu Feng, Fu Ying, and the other two stay by your side at all times. If you need them to complete a task, let Fu Feng pick someone else from the dark chamber to do it. They don't have to go there in person. Chu Qing Huang didn't say anything, closed her eyes and enjoyed his service. These four are the best among the younger generation of the dark chamber. With them around, I can feel more at ease. Fu Kang, you're almost like an old woman, Chu Qing Huang said indifferently. Don't think of me as a weak woman who can't even tie a chicken. Fu Kang pursed his lips and said nothing. He knew that his master was strong and much more powerful than an ordinary woman, but the opponents around him were eyeing him covetously, and he was always worried about the possibility of something happening. Go take a shower and go to bed early tonight. Chu Qing Huang opened her eyes and her eyes fell on his hair. Wash your hair well, I have something to give you. Fu Kang agreed, and when he turned to leave, he was suspicious in his heart. The master had something to give him. What does giving something have to do with his hair? Fu Kang was puzzled, but he washed himself up as quickly as possible, then quickly got dressed and returned to the bedroom. Fu Kang was about to go to bed, but heard Chu Qing Huang say, "Go get a pair of scissors." Scissors. Fu Kang looked at her silently, hesitantly. Master wants scissors. Yes. Fu Kang was puzzled, but still turned around and got a pair of scissors back. Chu Qing Huang took the scissors and put them on the bedside, motioning him to go to bed. Fu Kang was a little nervous, and went to bed without saying a word, just like usual. Chu Qing Huang motioned him to lie down. So Fu Kang lay down obediently, one command and one action, very well behaved. Chu Qing Huang raised her hand and picked up a strand of his hair, and then picked up a strand of her own hair. Fu Kang watched from the corner of his eye, and his heart couldn't help but beat. Chu Qing Huang tied their hair together, tied a knot, and then took the scissors. Master, don't do that. Fu Kang was shocked. Your hair and body are from your parents. You know a lot. Chu Qing Huang glanced at him and cut off the knotted part of their hair with scissors. Then have you ever heard of tying the hair to become a couple? Fu Kang was stunned. Chu Qing Huang slowly put the scissors back. Take the hair with you, just as this is my promise to you. Whenever you can't help but have wild thoughts in the next 3 years, take this out and take a look. Fu Kang sat up from his knees, looking at the knotted hair in front of him, feeling a little guilty for no reason. He thought of his sneaky behavior at night a few days ago. The master must have seen it but didn't expose him. Tonight, he even gave him such a valuable gift. Fu Kang felt ashamed for a moment. What are you thinking about? Fu Kang came back to his senses, his eyes fell on the tuft of hair, and shook his head slowly. Nothing, master, can you give me a sachet? Chu Qing Huang didn't say anything, and took out an unused sachet from the secret compartment at the head of the bed. Fu Kang put the hair into the sachet and put it in his arms. His eyes fell on Chu Qing Huang's hand. He didn't know where he got the courage from suddenly. He took her hand for the first time and kissed it on his li. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 334. The emperor soon received the banknotes sent by Qing Huang. Looking at the thick stack, he said with emotion, "Qing Huang is really my sweet little cotton-padded jacket." The corner of concubine Xian's mouth twitched. But before leaving, I have to do one last thing. The emperor quickly calmed down and ordered Chen Hai to take clothes and put them on. I will go to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager. Concubine Xian, you go with me. Concubine Xian was too lazy to correct his name. Anyway, whether it was the emperor, Concubine Xian, or the Empress Dowager, it was only tonight. When they left here tomorrow, there would be no emperor and Concubine Xian in the palace. It was not certain whether there would be a chance to come back in the future. If possible, she hoped to never come back again. Yes. So the two took advantage of the night to go to Renchao Palace. Having abdicated, the old emperor naturally didn't want to put on any pomp. The two of them almost walked all the way to Renchao Palace. Now Renchao Palace is like a cage. In addition to the iron wall defense outside, there are only a few palace maids and Feng Ping, the eunuch of the Empress Dowager. As soon as the emperor stepped into the palace gate, he heard the sound of teacups falling to the ground and breaking. Waste. You can't do a little thing well, you are all waste. Queen Dowager, calm down, Feng Ping hurriedly comforted, take care of yourself. The emperor stepped into the palace gate and saw the furious Empress Dowager. Actually, it should be the Grand Empress Dowager, but the Edict of Succession only said that the Queen was honored as the Empress Dowager, but did not honor the Empress Dowager as the Grand Empress Dowager. So for now, she is still just a Queen Dowager. The Emperor stood quietly for a moment and said, it's so late, and the Queen Mother hasn't rested yet, why are you still so angry? The Queen Mother's pupils shrank, and she suddenly turned her head to look at the Emperor, who walked in quietly, with a cold expression, as if she was looking at an irreconcilable enemy. The Queen Mother hates me. The Emperor smiled, walked over, and sat down on the chair next to her. Is it because I passed the throne to Qing Huang, so that the Queen Mother's wish was unfulfilled? The Queen Mother stared at him intently, her eyes inexplicably cold. When the Queen Mother replaced the Crown Prince with a cat to consolidate her position as Queen, did she ever think that this day would come? The Queen Mother's face suddenly changed. What did you say? The assassins at today's coronation ceremony were sent by the Queen Mother, right? The Emperor retired, poured himself a cup of tea, his voice was as light as if he was chatting casually. It's a pity that the Queen Mother has only this one useful hidden guard around her, and now he is half dead, and no one can do things for the Queen Mother in the future. The Queen Mother's face was covered with a layer of haze, and she tightly grasped the handkerchief, and the coldness ran up her spine from the soles of her feet. No matter what the idea was, or what method was used, the Queen Mother has successfully disrupted the royal bloodline, but since she was wrong, let her be wrong to the end. The Emperor retired, drank a sip of tea. Although Qing Huang is a woman, she has the courage of a king of a country, which is much better than my useless sons. I believe that Ziki will prosper in her hands. So what does bloodline have to do with it? The strong are the kings and the weak are the bandits. After the fall of a dynasty, other surnames can still replace it. Who can guarantee that the orthodox bloodline can be passed down forever? How do you know this? The Queen Mother looked at him in disbelief, with horror in her eyes. Who told you? No wonder he was so eager to kill the concubine. The Queen Mother finally understood the reason, but what she didn't understand was that this matter should have been a top secret. Why did the Emperor know it? There is no wall that is impenetrable, the Emperor said in a light tone. The Queen Mother can tell Tianyan this secret, so she shouldn't expect him to keep it secret. Besides, even if he didn't say it, he couldn't stop the secret from leaking out. Anything that only needs one person to know will be known by the second, third, or even more people. Tell Tianyan. The Queen Mother froze. When did I tell him? The Emperor was silent. It's already this time, there's no need for me to deny it. It's already this time, there's really no need for me to deny it, the Queen Mother said coldly, but I really didn't tell anyone the truth. Tianyan is impulsive, I know it better than the Emperor. How could I tell him the truth so easily? Telling him the truth when you're not sure will only push him to death. The Queen Mother is not that stupid. The Emperor was silent, seeing that her expression was not fake. He couldn't help but mutter in his heart, is it really not the Queen Mother who told Tianyan the truth? But the letter was clearly written by the Queen Mother. Besides, if the Queen Mother hadn't told him, who else would know the secret? But none of this matters anymore. The Emperor was too lazy to think about it and quickly returned to the topic. I have abdicated. Qing Huang will have the final say in Ziki. I could have let my mother enjoy her old age, if she is willing to be obedient. When the Queen Mother heard his words, She seemed to have foreseen something and smiled coldly. What? Does the emperor still want to kill your mother? Now it seems that I am wishful thinking. As long as the Queen Mother is still sitting on the throne of the Queen Mother, she will never give up and accept the fact. The emperor stood up and looked at her with a little indifference. After all, I have called you mother for decades. I don't want to kill my mother. The Queen Mother can make her own choice. Only one of you and Tianyin can survive. The Queen Mother felt like she was falling into an ice cellar. Tianyin is my son, the emperor said calmly. Even if he did a lot of things he shouldn't have done, I don't want to kill him unless it's absolutely necessary. But if the Queen Mother insists on doing it, I can't rest assured. I can only get rid of this trouble for Qing Huang. The new emperor will inevitably be cursed if he harms his brothers, but Tianyin's existence is more worrying than the other princes. So one of the Queen Mother and Tianyin must never speak again. The emperor turned and walked out. The Queen Mother's face was pale, and the whole person seemed to have been drained of strength. She sat there stiffly and powerlessly for a long time. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 335. Chu Qinghuang doesn't know what happened in the palace yet. She will not let people keep an eye on the actions of her father and the Queen Mother unless necessary. Early the next morning, Chu Qinghuang did not go to court, but took Rongyu and Nan 11 all the way outside the imperial city. Rongyu and Nan 11 were riding in a carriage, with Xiejin, Xian Yuanyao, Rongzhan, and Rongchen escorting them on horseback on both sides. The formation was a bit big. Chu Qinghuang and Fukang rode horses side by side, reluctant to leave as they walked. Behind them were Chu Xuanyi and the imperial army. The two countries are far apart, and a round trip would take too long. Otherwise, I would come to my sister's house every day to harass her. Rongzhan sat on the horse, frowning. By the way, I would like to share my experience in running the army. War King, there is no need to be melancholy, Xiejin said with a smile. Her Majesty the Queen will go to Dongling after the Spring Festival, and we can meet again then. Hearing this, Rongzhan couldn't help but feel entangled. It's good to meet each other, but it's hard to avoid making people feel sad every time we separate. Chu Qinghuang raised an eyebrow. Is it possible that because you don't want to face the sadness of separation, you don't have to meet again in the future? That's not what I meant, Rongzhan sighed. I just think it's hard for my sister to travel a long distance. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, there is no life in this world that is not hard. If walking even a little way feels hard, wouldn't it be even more miserable with such a huge country, heavy government affairs, and endless conspiracies? Rongzhan was silent for a moment, then nodded as if he had been taught something. My sister is right, I am narrow-minded. The King of War is not narrow-minded, he just loves his sister, Xiejin said with a smile. But if we can promote eternal friendship between Dongling and Ziki, then it will be worth the hard work. After all, he will seek political power in his position. Now that Her Majesty the Queen has ascended the throne, she naturally has to do more for Ziki. What Ajin said is absolutely true. Xian Yuanyao nodded in agreement. Everyone has his own way to go and his own things to do. There is a huge difference between the king of a country and the woman in the house. Since Your Majesty has ascended the throne as the emperor, cannot be as delicate as ordinary women. If the king of a country cannot become strong, how can the country be strong? A weak monarch is not only bullied by his ministers, but also bullied by foreign enemies. A weak monarch is most likely to attract internal and external troubles. For the people of the country, such weakness will be fatal. Rongzhan frowned, glanced at Xiejin, and then turned to look at Xian Yuanyao. I was just sighing, and I didn't ask my sister to be a little girl. Uncle Jin and Uncle Yao couldn't wait to start giving me advice. Nan 11, who was sitting in the carriage, listened to their discussion with a gentle smile on her face. We are going back to Tangling this time. We can stay here for a while. Rongyu nodded, yes. Rongyu. Nan 11 looked at him with a smile. We have been husband and wife for so many years. We have been to many mountains and rivers and wonderful places in the world. We have seen the wonderful world and spent thousands of days together every day. Don't you feel bored? Are you really not attracted to other beauties? Wrong, you frowned. Are you tired? No, Nan 11 shook her head. Then why am I bothered? Wrong, you hugged her gently in his arms. His voice was low and full of emotion. I wish that time could be kinder to us, so that you and I can live longer. This way they can spend more time together. Nan 11 chuckled. Others are riding horses, so I feel sorry for you to accompany me in the carriage every day. They are all young people. Wrong, you said. When I get older, I like to sit in the carriage with you. Older? Nan 11 laughed. You also liked riding carriages with me when you were young. Yes, Wrong, you nodded. This shows that my husband is very obsessed with carriages. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 336. The group of people went their separate ways outside the imperial city. Along the way, everything that needed to be said was said and everything that needed to be explained was explained, but there was nothing left to say when parting. Nan 11 stepped out of the carriage and hugged her daughter. Protect yourself. Your father and I will send people over at any time to listen to you. If you need anything, you can tell them. Chu Qing Huang hummed, Mom, please take care of yourself. Nan 11 smiled and whispered, Don't worry, your little shadow mother will take care of it for you. That's not necessary. Chu Qing Huang's eyebrows were a little warmer. He has been training in the dark pavilion since he was a child. He has been exposed to few things and seems not very smart in many aspects. In fact, he has a strong willpower and learns things quickly. Let him practice with his father and increase his knowledge. My father is good at many things and has dabbled in all aspects. After Fukang became a disciple, in addition to the things involved in the 6 Tao, the most important thing was to learn his father's style of conduct. Teach by precept and example. Long-term exposure is more effective than step-by-step instruction. Chu Qing Huang knew very well that her father was a person who could easily impress others. Whether they were his subordinates, sons, daughters, or apprentices, they would subconsciously use his father's behavior as a benchmark after spending time with him. None of the people who have been taught by Rong Yu, formally or informally, have been raised crooked so far. Even Xiejin, the chief minister of Dongling, who has great power in the government and everyone, still has the emperor's heartfelt trust, and the relationship between monarch and ministers has never been no suspicion. If Fukang goes out to practice for 3 years, he will definitely benefit from it for life. Here are the large value banknotes bearing Nan's bill number, and a token of identity. Nan 11 took out a baggage from the carriage and handed it to Chu Qing Huang. The private money your father gave you, you own, keep it safe. If you are short of money, go to Nanji Bank in advance and they will prepare enough money for you. Chu Qing Huang took the baggage and said, Thank you, father and mother, and take care of yourself along the way. Nan 11 sighed, although she was a little reluctant to say goodbye. We had to say goodbye after all. She turned and got into the carriage. Take care, Your Majesty. The Queen Xiejin said goodbye calmly. We're leaving first. Rongzhan reluctantly said, If my sister needs me, I am actually very willing to stay. Second brother, it's better to go to the military camp quickly. Chu Qing Huang said, If you are late, be careful of my father beating you. Rongzhan clicked his tongue. My sister is really not cute. Although he said this, Rongzhan's heart pounded when he thought of his father returning to Dongling with them this time. Chu Qing Huang turned her head and looked at Fukang standing aside. Take care. Fukang pursed his lips, feeling reluctant in his heart. The team gradually went away, and Chu Qing Huang stood outside the imperial city, suddenly feeling lost. All gone. The originally bustling family had all left, including Fukang, leaving her alone. The originally lively atmosphere suddenly became deserted. Chu Qinghuang got on the horse and looked at the distant team. After a while, she turned the horse's head and said, "Go back to the palace." Chu Xuanyi rode his horse to follow. He did not think deeply about the obvious close relationship between Chu Qinghuang and the Dongling royal family. He had been in contact with Chu Qinghuang a lot during this period, and he had become accustomed to turning a blind eye and closing his ears. He listened as much as he should. What should not be heard is gone with the wind. Overthinking won't do you any good and will only add to your worries. The half-day passed quickly. It was almost noon when we arrived at the palace gate, and the civil and military officials of the entire court were still waiting in the main hall. No one left before they got the order. Accompanied by a high-pitched and feminine sound of Her Majesty the Queen has arrived, hundreds of officials knelt down and kowtowed, "Long live Her Majesty the Queen! Your Majesty, Your Majesty!" A eunuch hurriedly ran up to the hall. The Queen Mother collapsed. The expressions of the civil and military officials in the court suddenly changed, and they began to cry. Chu Qinghuang's eyebrows flashed in deep thought, but his expression was cold. The Ministry of Rites is responsible for preparing the funeral. Now that the national treasury is not sufficient, the funeral should not be excessive. The Minister of Rites received the order cautiously. "I obey the order." The Queen Mother passed away. "I am deeply saddened, so I will rest for 3 days." Chu Qinghuang stood up. "The funeral ceremony will be carried out according to the royal etiquette, and there must be no mistakes. I obey the decree." After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 337. The funeral of the Queen Mother was carried out according to the royal rules and was not overly simple. However, it was a time of money and the national treasury was not sufficient, so some luxurious and precious burials were reduced. The palace servants of Renqiao Palace were sent away to work elsewhere early, so they were not affected this time. Empress Qin, who had just been promoted to the Queen Mother, took all the concubines Dai Xiao to mourn. On the surface, she was crying for the Queen Mother, but in fact, everyone was full of grievances, depressed and uncomfortable. Thinking of the emperor who brought concubine Xian out of the palace this morning, the Empress Dowager and concubine Duan were filled with anger and resentment. Originally, they could all be pampered in the harem. As long as Chu Qinghuang did not ascend the throne, the Empress and concubine Duan would still hug each other one day later. There is hope. However, the unreliable Emperor Sheng caught them off guard. He left the throne halfway and gave up the throne to Chu Qinghuang. When the dust has settled, whoever dares to think of the throne again will be committing treason and rebellion, a crime that cannot be pardoned. The queen and concubine Duan hated the emperor so much that they gritted their teeth. Although the other concubines did not have any sons competing for the heir apparent, when the queen ascended the throne, they became concubines from concubines. Well, there are still some who have not yet been named concubines. He doesn't have a legitimate position, and he is currently in a state of panic, not knowing what his fate will be in the future. Chu Qinghuang sat in the Qinzhen hall and read through all the memorials. The new eunuch Yuan Bao was waiting aside with lowered eyebrows, sometimes changing tea and incense to Chu Qinghuang, and soon began to grind ink again. "I don't know if I'm afraid of being accused of being lazy, so I can't help but find something to do." Yuan Bao, Her Majesty the Queen ordered, "Pass the decree and summon King Rong to the palace." "Yes." Chu Qinghuang put down the imperial pen, leaned on the chair silently, and looked around. He was still a little uncomfortable without the familiar little shadow guard. There's been a lot going on lately. The change of generals in Mianbei, the coming of autumn, the funeral of the Queen Mother, the placement of concubines in the palace, the promotion and selection of vacant officials in the court, and the beheading of prisoners in the Queen of Autumn. Chu Qinghuang rubbed the center of his eyebrows, feeling that His Majesty's abdication of the throne at this time was really an irresponsible act. Your Majesty. Chen Hai walked in from outside and bowed to report, "I have something to report." Chu Qing Huang raised her eyes, "Eunuch Chen, didn't you go out of the palace with your father?" No. Chen Hai lowered his head. The emperor said that bringing a servant would be too conspicuous. He was also worried that His Majesty had just ascended the throne and it would be inconvenient to employ people, so he ordered the servant to stay in the palace and wait for His Majesty's orders. Chu Qing Huang understood. Indeed. The eunuchs in the palace were all eunuchs, with fair and feminine looks and no beards, making them easily recognizable. The Supreme Emperor abdicated his throne and went out to relax. Naturally, he did not want to be targeted and cause more trouble because of a slave next to him. Moreover, Chen Hai is an old man in the palace, so staying in the palace can indeed help Chu Qing Huang. What are your orders, father? The emperor's intention is that in order to save expenses in the palace, concubines without sons can stay in the palace to take care of themselves, while those with sons can move out of the palace and live with the prince and be served by his own son. Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows. How many childless concubines are there in my father's palace? 12 people. Chu Qing Huang hummed, you go ahead and make arrangements to move these childless palace concubines to a quiet palace. Their food, clothing, monthly routines will remain the same as before, and there is no need to reduce them harshly. After the Queen Mother's funeral is over, we can move them to a quiet palace they moved over. Yes, Chen Hai agreed. In addition, Eunuch Chen has served my father for so many years and is more familiar with the affairs of the inner court than others. From now on, you will still be the chief steward of the inner court. Chen Hai lowered his eyebrows, thank you for your grace, your majesty. Chu Qing Huang thought for a moment and found that there was nothing else to ask, so he said, step back first. There is one more thing, Chen Hai said after careful consideration. According to convention, the few servants in the backyard of the princess's mansion should be given a title. What do you think, your majesty? Chu Qing Huang was silent for a moment, but he didn't expect Chen Hai to mention this. Your majesty can consider this matter from many aspects, Chen Hai said. It will be more convenient for your majesty to meet with your majesty once your servants enter the palace. They can also help His Majesty do some things. It's just a title. If your majesty doesn't care about them, that means, you don't need to call someone to sleep with you. It's just that having some old friends around makes you feel more at ease when doing things. Chu Qing Huang pondered, Wen Zhan will take the exam this month, and it will do him no good to be stuffed into the harem. Being stuffed into the backyard of the eldest princess's house before can be regarded as her absurdity. Even if she is crowned with the title of servant, men have some advantages in this regard and will not really be trapped in the back house like women. Because Chu Qing Huang's behavior was not in line with the rules, the ethics were not so strict on them. But things are different now. Chu Qing Huang is already the king of a country. Regardless of whether he breaks the convention or not, the majesty of the 9th 5-year Supreme Lord cannot be challenged. Once he enters the harem, it will be a lifelong privilege. In the past, she would randomly stuff people into the backyard to avoid suspicion, but that was obviously not possible anymore. Chu Qing Huang nodded slowly, I will consider this matter and discuss it later. Yes. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 338. After Chen Hai retreated, Chu Qing Huang pondered alone. Qi Ling and Shen Kongjin took people to Mianbei. Wen Zhan wanted to become an official, and among the 4 attendants, only Hong Yu was left without any specific goals. Long live the Queen! Long live the Queen! Suddenly, a familiar sound of milk sounded outside the palace. Chu Qing Huang came back to her senses. She looked up and saw the small and white little guy flexing his body and rushing to her like lightning. His little mouth said loudly, Long live the Queen! Long live the Queen! Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows, stretched out his hand and held it in his palm. Are you homeless? The queen mother has died, so the little guy must have been busy in the harem. Your Majesty, Prince Rong wishes to see you. Chu Qing Huang said, come in. Prince Rong, who was dressed in strict princely robes, walked in with steady steps. He was about to kneel down to salute when he heard Chu Qing Huang say calmly, Uncle, you don't have to kneel down in front of me. King Rong paused slightly, bowed and said, I don't dare. The emperor's uncle is an elder and has contributed to the country. Chu Qing Huang stroked the little beast's soft body. I should give the emperor the respect he deserves. King Rong was silent for a moment and respectfully thanked him, which was regarded as receiving this grace. My father abdicated the throne in a hurry, and I haven't had time to prepare for many things. In the future, I will need your uncle's assistance in government affairs. Your Majesty's words are serious, Prince Rong said. It is my duty to be loyal to your Majesty. As long as your Majesty has your orders, I will not hesitate to do so even if I die. There is no need to refuse even if you die, Chu Qing Huang said indifferently. The emperor's uncle will be responsible for selecting the invigilator for August and autumn. The virtuous ministers will be the main ones. I don't want to see anyone engaging in malpractice for personal gain and causing trouble in the examination room. I obey the decree. Prince Rong has been in the government for many years without fighting or grabbing, and he is not a showman. However, in addition to Chu Xuanyi, the eldest son who holds the military power of the imperial army, there are also many disciples in Prince Rong's palace. However, they have always acted in a low-key manner, unlike those families who seek death. Just reach high. With the help of King Rong, the royal family members and half of the ministers in the court do not need to worry. Next, Chu Qing Huang can focus on reorganizing the court, promoting good ministers, and selecting talented and capable young upstarts from students all over the world to bring fresh blood to the court. But how should Hongyu be placed? Chu Qing Huang thought for a while. Hongyu was good at divination and fortune-telling, so he could be sent to Qintian prison to give full play to his expertise. The march of the army is too eye-catching. The 10,000 cavalry led by Rong Zhan were broken into pieces when they came, and they entered in batches in disguise until they arrived at Beicheng. In addition, the method of concealment was very good, so the spies sent by Prince Xian's palace and Qin Kuaju did not get information about them. There was no need at all when returning, so the Iron Cavalry went ahead, with 10,000 horses, heading straight to Dongling. Rong Yu had always disliked being disturbed, so he refused Xian Yuanyao and Xiejin's request to escort him along the way, and just sat in a carriage with Nan 11, still in the mood of touring the mountains and rivers. Fu Kang sat in the front and drove the car, obeying orders along the way. No matter how leisurely the master and mistress are, it has nothing to do with Fu Kang. If something happens, the disciple will do his best. There were people waiting on Rong Yu and Nan 11 wherever they stayed along the way, and there was no need for him to do it himself. However, Fu Kang had long been accustomed to using all available time to read while driving, and when he was resting, he would read or copy books. Dare to delay. That evening, the carriage stopped outside a mansion. The words Ziwan are clearly hanging on the plaque outside the gate. Along the way, he observed that the name of the house he stayed at almost every time was Ziwan. There were houses like this in every city in every state. The scenery was quiet and beautiful, the interior was exquisitely decorated, the pavilions, bridges and flowing water were all obviously, it took a lot of thought. Fu Kang could vaguely guess what was going on, but he never showed any inappropriate reaction. After entering Ziwan, changing clothes, washing up, and taking a short rest, it was time for dinner. Rong Yu has always attached great importance to privacy. He doesn't even like to be served by others when eating. It's just him and Nan 11. This habit has been maintained for more than 20 years. When they stayed in Dongling, they would occasionally have meals with their two sons, or invite Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao to have a meal together. Most of the time, they enjoyed the silence that belonged to the couple. But Fuekang is quite special. During the time he was with him, in addition to having breakfast in his own room, he was required to eat lunch and dinner with his master and his wife. At first he was not used to it and always felt restless. Later, he discovered that the master would not ask him any questions during the meal, and did not even look at him to give him any charity. Of course Fuekang didn't know that Nan 11 actually requested this special treatment. Nan 11 knew that the shadow guard had an irregular diet. Fuekang had been nursed back to health by Chu Qing Huang for a period of time, and his physical condition was much better than before. Now that he was with her, Nan 11 naturally had to continue to follow up on his diet. He could not let all the daughter's hard work be in vain. After dinner, Fuekang would return to his room and be asked to squat in front of the desk in his Hama stance to copy the 6 Tao. The body is not allowed to wander, the mind is not allowed to be distracted, the handwriting is not allowed to be messy, and the rice paper should be kept clean and tidy. Wrong, you said concisely, 2 hours. Zimabu copying is not difficult for Fuekang. After all, what shadow guards like him have been training for 10 years is their will. Zimabu is a basic skill for warriors, so it is not difficult for him at all. Although the shadow guard who came out of the dark pavilion would not be as knowledgeable as the noble master, he could do the most basic copying, but his handwriting was not that beautiful. But Fuekang didn't understand Rong Yu. Or he didn't fully understand the style of this master, otherwise he wouldn't have such an optimistic and relaxed idea so early. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 339. A strong wind filled his eardrums, and Fuekang's hand holding the pen paused slightly, and then a figure broke through the window and headed towards his front door. Fuekang's eyebrows turned cold, and the murderous look in his eyes flashed away. The brush in his hand turned into a hidden weapon and shot towards the person who came. The person turned his head and dodged past him. With a thud, the pen stick was inserted straight into the wall with a strong force. It makes the brush vibrate and buzz slightly. Ink splattered on the ground at one end of the soft bristles. Even the rice paper laid out in front of me while I was copying had a drop of ink splashed on it, which looked particularly dazzling on the white paper. The air seemed to become quiet for a moment. The visitor stood still in the room, and Fuekang's eyes fell on his face. He was about 40 years old and looked calm and reserved. He was a master who kept his secrets to himself. Fuekang vaguely felt that the opponent must be a shadow guard. The skills and reactions just now were most common among well-trained shadow guards. But there are very few shadow guards who can still maintain such skills when they are around 40 years old. Looking away from the brush embedded in the wall, the man looked at Fuekang silently, and Fuekang looked at him without saying a word. Their eyes met, and an unpleasant atmosphere slowly fermented in the air. The middle-aged man nodded silently, then slowly turned around and walked out of the door. Wait a minute, Fuekang already understood what was going on. Seeing that he was about to leave, he spoke in time, "Can you get the pen back for me?" The man turned to look at him, and for a moment, he looked at the brush embedded in the wall. "What if I don't?" Fuekang frowned. "You have already made 3 mistakes," the man said calmly, "a 4th mistake will have no impact." With that said, he walked away. Fuekang pursed his lips and remained silent for a while, staring at the rice paper in front of him that was stained with ink. Thinking about what he said, he had indeed made 3 mistakes. The mind cannot be distracted. The handwriting cannot be messy. Keep the rice paper clean and tidy. The only thing that wasn't a foul was that Zimabu's posture was fairly stable. When the opponent broke through the window just now, he just raised his hand and threw the brush in his hand without moving his body. But Fu Kang frowned. How could he copy without the pen in his hand? There are no extra pens on the desk. If you want to get the brush back by yourself, you have to get up and walk over. Therefore, it became impossible to keep the body still. Fu Kang hesitated for only a moment, then got up and came back with the brush. The rice paper stained with ink could no longer be used. Fu Kang did not hesitate to throw away the half-copied rice paper, took out a new piece of paper, dipped it in ink and copied again. Before he stepped down, he turned to look at the hourglass in the room. He had already walked a little halfway, so he walked over and set the hourglass to start again. When everything was ready, he got back on his horse, held the brush and started copying. Calm your mind and calm down your mind. No one disturbed him, so the 2 hours passed by without any difficulty. It was already late at night by the time he completed the task, so Fu Kang rubbed his wrists and moved his limbs. Looking at the dark sky outside, he felt that he should not disturb his master and his wife's rest at this hour, so he spread out the copied articles one by one on the desk and memorized them silently. At the same time, Fu Kang began to think about how to apologize to his master after dawn. The master has said before that the master is very strict in teaching people. The most direct way to teach a subordinate or son who has made a mistake is with a cane. It doesn't hurt the muscles and bones, but it can make the body feel unforgettable pain. Fu Kang couldn't help but think that he should prepare a cane first. Although he can't be blamed for the mistakes tonight, when someone makes a sneak attack, killing them with one blow is the most basic instinct of a qualified shadow guard. The person who attacked him tonight was also very skilled and had no murderous intent, so he escaped from Fu Kang's hands. But these are not defensible reasons. Years of rigorous training have already made them accustomed to taking responsibility for their mistakes without making any unnecessary excuses. Thinking like this, Fu Kang turned around and went to wash up. After gathering himself, he turned around, walked to the case, sat down, opened the book, and began to read the content at the back. Rest at midnight and sleep until Mao hour. 3 hours a day. This is what his wife asked him to do. If it weren't for Nan 11's control, Fu Kang would be able to sleep for 1 to 2 hours every day, and the rest of the time could be used to read, copy, and learn more. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 340. The days in August are no longer that long, and the dawn is later than before. When Fu Kang got up, it was still gray outside. After washing and changing clothes in an orderly manner, Fu Kang took the rattan he had found overnight and went to his master's courtyard to plead guilty. 6 Tao is never left behind. When kneeling in the yard, the body remains in a straight position, and almost all the strength of the body is pressed on the knees. This posture is very difficult for most people. If they can't hold it for even a cup of tea, they will feel unbearable pain in their knees. Nan 11 stood in front of the window, looked at the young man in the yard, and sighed softly, "This child is so good, it makes people feel distressed." "Wrong," you said, "it's still early, do you want to sleep a little longer?" Nan 11 smiled and shook her head, "Who is still staying in bed all day at such an old age? Let the children see the joke." "Wrong," you frowned, "no one dares to laugh at you." "I'm kidding." Nan 11 touched his face, "Now I can understand why those emperors in ancient times pursued immortality. People are greedy. Once you hold some things in this world, it's hard to let go. Some people are attached to power, while others are obsessed with feelings. Greed can make people irrational." "Wrong." You locked his eyes between her eyebrows and said in a low voice, "Are you greedy too?" "Yes." Nan 11 nodded, "My greed is to live forever with you, continue to enjoy the prosperity and beauty of this world, and never be separated from each other in life after life. Rong Yu slowly hugged her into his arms. My heart feels the same. Fu Kang knelt in the yard for an hour. An hour later, Rong Yu opened the door and walked out. The eyes that fell on him were indifferent and calm. What are you carrying? Fu Kang lowered his eyes. There are 4 seasons of nature, and all things are born on the earth. There are people in the world, and benevolent saints tend them. Therefore, in spring, the Tao is born, and all things flourish. In summer, the Tao grows, and all things are completed. In autumn, the Tao converges, and things are abundant. In winter, the Tao hides, and all things are found. When the Tao is full, everything is found. If you hide, you will rise again. You don't know where you end, and you don't know where you start. The sage acts as the agent of heaven and earth. Therefore, when the world is governed, benevolence and sage are hidden. When the world is in chaos, benevolence and sage flourish. The way of the sage is in heaven and earth. Time, its treasures are solid and great. If you look at them regularly, the people will be safe. Rong Yu listened quietly, and after he finished reciting it, he said calmly, King Wen asked the Grand Duke, I heard that it is a major matter for the country, and I want to make the Lord and others safe. What should I do? Fu Kang replied, love the people. What can I do if I love my people? Benefit without harm, succeed without defeat, live without killing, give without taking away, be happy without suffering, be happy without being angry. Rong Yu said calmly, how did you finish your homework last night? It was not completed well. Fu Kang replied, holding out the cane with both hands, this disciple has made 4 mistakes, please ask the master to reprimand him. Rong Yu said calmly, 4 mistakes. Yes. Fu Kang pursed his lips. The disciple failed to meet the 4 requirements imposed by the master. In that case, Rong Yu's eyes fell on his hand. Is 1 stick enough? Fu Kang was stunned for a moment, then pursed his lips. Disciple knows his mistake. I can give you a chance to explain. Fu Kang thought for a while and said truthfully, someone attacked me last night. So you took action against him? Yes. So it's not your fault. Fu Kang's back stiffened and he subconsciously replied, no, the disciple is at fault. It was his fault for not completing the task, and he should not use any excuses to defend himself. Rong Yu asked, how long should I let you stay with me? 3 years. Prepare a ledger by yourself later. Rong Yu said calmly, the period of study I gave you is 36 months. I won't do anything to you unless necessary. But since you made 4 mistakes last night, just write down the 4-month penalty period in your account book. Every time you make a mistake in the future, add 1 month. If you make too many mistakes, you don't have to go back. You can just stay with me to take care of me till the end of your life. Fu Kang clutched the cane tightly, lowered his head and said nothing. Not convinced. Disciple dare not. Fu Kang pursed his lips, Master, can you change the way of punishment? Disciple will go to the market to buy more canes later. Disciple is stupid. Please teach Master a lesson. I need you to teach me how to do things as a teacher. Disciples don't dare. Rong Yu glanced at him, get the account books ready today. I'll check them tonight. Fu Kang's face was pale, but he didn't dare to refute any more, and responded in a low voice. 3 years is already a long enough time, but after adding another 4 months for no reason, I don't know how many mistakes I will make in the future. Thinking about it, Fu Kang felt that the future was gloomy, and the day when he would meet his master seemed to be far away. When Rong Yu turned around, his eyes fell on his downcast eyebrows. He was silent for a moment and said calmly, the first lesson I will teach you today is to forget your identity as a shadow guard and learn to restrain your subconscious reactions unless you really feel the danger, otherwise you are not allowed to use the shadow guard's killing move against anyone. Fu Kang lowered his head, yes. If you behave well in the future, You can also deduct some time from the account book. Wrong, you said calmly, continue to go back and copy. Lose some time? Fu Kang perked up and suddenly felt that there was still hope. Yes.